Hi there, everybody. This is Maestro Kelbong or Sir Kelvin once again, and we are back to our lecture or lesson on speech today. For today's lesson, we'll be dealing with the definition of speech and the importance of speech in communication. We will try to look into the differences also of speech and language. But before anything else, I would like to ask you how you are these days. I hope you are all doing fine in the comfort of our homes. And I hope that you are all safe, healthy, and strong, even though we have a lot of things to do during our lesson. I know for a fact that the tasks are given to you on Genio or on your modules have been very hard lately. So I hope that we will try to look into it. We will try to do our best to work together. So that's it for today's lesson. We will continue with, of course, the importance of speech, the definition of speech. And like I said, we will also deal with the differences between language and speech. So let me just share to you my screen. So as you can see right now, we will be doing the lesson 2 of our lesson package. And that is entitled, of course, What is Speech? And what is its importance to the communication. Okay, so let's start. Before anything else, I will show you first some pictures that will help you determine what we are going to do for today. Now, look at these pictures. You might as well need your notebook and your ball pen where you can write your answers. So I want you to study the pictures below. Do you think speech and language are the same? So let me know your thoughts about them by writing it on your notebook or any sheet of paper that you have at the moment. You may start writing now. Very good. Let's move on to the next slide. We will use a definition later on as we go on with our discussion. This time for our pre-activity, we will be dealing with the 3 different speeches. Actually, these are speech excerpts taken from the internet. So I want you to study the following speech excerpts or quotes from famous people from around the globe. There are 3 famous people. I know you are familiar with these 3. So what makes each speech stand out? So I want you to give your insight about those speeches on your notebook. So you need, of course, your notebook and your ball pen again. Or if you have an assigned task on Genya, you can write it there as well. Let's start with the first one. This speech is from Oprah Winfrey from Harvard University. I know that Oprah Winfrey, you know her, and she's a very famous TV host, philanthropist, and an actress. She said, "It doesn't matter how far you might rise. At some point, you are bound to stumble. If you're constantly pushing yourself higher, the law of averages, not to mention the myth of Icarus, predicts that you will, at some point, fall. And when you do, I want you to know this. Remember this. There is no such thing as failure. Failure is just life trying to move us in another direction." Off quote by Oprah Winfrey from Harvard University. So what is now your thoughts or idea or your understanding about the speech excerpt by Oprah Winfrey regarding failure? You may start writing your thoughts on your notebook right now. That's wonderful. We will be using that one later on again. Let's proceed to the next speech by Nelson Mandela. I think everybody knows Nelson Mandela, right? He said, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others. that will determine the significance of life we lead. Of quote by Nelson Mandela. So now, what is your thoughts or idea or understanding about his speech or quote regarding life? You may write your answer on your notebook right now. That's wonderful. We will be using that answer again later on. Let's proceed to the last and the third speech by Malala Yousafzai. When the whole world is silent, even one voice becomes powerful, of quote. So what is now the idea that Malala wants to share to us about the voice of the youth? You may start writing now on your notebook. Wonderful. For those who are enrolled online or in a synchronous modality, you may check the task assigned to you on Genio. You can fulfill it there or accomplish it there. Let's move on to the next slide. Now, this is not the beginning of our discussion. We will start off with a saying or a statement by one of a famous speech therapist. Her name is Christina Evangelo. She said that language and speech are two different sets of terms, but are both under the same umbrella of communication. Okay, so that is the reason why this is language and speech, but they are actually under the umbrella of communication. So without the language and speech, you won't be able to communicate. So they have to work together. All right. And by the way, as you can see from the slide, there is the term bilingualism. Bilingualism is the ability to speak at least two languages. In our case in the Philippines, basically we can speak at least 2 or 3 languages. If you speak 3 or more languages, you are not a bilingual, but you can term yourself multilingual, right? In my case, I can speak, of course, our mother tongue, which is the Ilocano. I can also speak our national language, Filipino, and I can also speak, of course, English. In addition to that, I have taught myself how to speak in Korean a little bit. And of course, because of my experience living in Cebu City, I was able to acquire the language Bisaya. So that is the reason why I can speak 5 languages. That makes me a multilingual teacher. How about you? How many languages can you speak? Let me know that, right? Okay, let's move on. Like I said, language and speech are under the umbrella of communication. All right, there are 2 different sets, but they are under the umbrella of communication. Let's move on to the next slide, a slide that will teach us the differences further of language and speech. Let's start with language. The first one there, language can be conveyed, communicated through different modes. Yes, there are different modes of communication. Basically, we can use the spoken communication, written communication, and the signed communication. So if you say spoken is the way when we speak to someone else, when we talk to someone else regarding our feelings, our emotions, or our opinions, we just simply say it to the person, and that is a spoken communication. There is also written communication. Basically, we use writing to express our emotions, our feelings, and our opinions. Those who are not that very good in speaking, they opt or they choose to write their opinions by using letters or essays or even stories. There is also a signed communication that is usually used by our friends who have difficulty speaking difficulty speaking. Okay, that is basically an impairment in their own ability. So they use the sign language. Do you know how to use the sign language? I would love to learn that. The next one is the modes of language can be broken down to sentences, words, syllables, and ultimately the smallest units, what you call the sounds. All of these 4 things, sentences, words, syllables, and sounds are combined together to come up with one specific language. So If you have all of these things, then you are able to communicate with someone else. Let's proceed to the speech. Speech is also different from language. Speech refers only to the spoken mode of communication. Like I said a while back, there are some people who are very good in speaking, but not good in writing. There are also people who are very good in writing, but not good in speaking. There are also some other people who are very good at both. But whatever means you want to say, whatever means you want to use, as long as you can communicate, you can do it. It is your right to do that. But again, speech, that is the spoken mode of communication. Whatever you cannot write it, speak it out. And whatever you cannot speak out, you can write it. All right, let's move on. So speech is also the combination of sounds that make up speech. Your speech will never make sense until it has the sounds. You just imagine if I speak like this way. What did I say? You did not hear anything because there is no sound at all. Even though I know the words, the vocabulary, or the expressions, if there is no sound in it, you will never be understood, right? Or you can never understand what it is. So that is the reason why the sounds and the speech, combination of sounds and the words together, sentences, words, syllables, and the sounds are together to make specific language. So now that you know the differences between language and speech, let's move on to the next slide. Additional to the definition of speech, it says here, it is a communication or an expression of thoughts in spoken words. That is right. If you cannot, like I said a while back, if you cannot speak, or if you cannot express your opinions in writing, then you can use the spoken words. But be careful. It is important when you speak with someone else with finesse and respect to other people. Another one is that this is the power of expressing or communicating thoughts by speaking to an audience, just like what I'm doing right now. I cannot see you, but I know that you are listening to me and you are my audience and you are also my students. So I'm doing this speech in the form of a lecture or discussion. All right, so there is communication still. It's just that, yes, definitely, because it's just that you cannot, or I cannot see you, but you can hear me, but there is still a transfer of message. So that is still considered a kind of communication. We will learn more about that one as we go on with our discussions later on. Let's move on to the next slide. Another definition of speech is that speech is the production of sounds that make up words and sentences. So these sounds units are combined so that they make up words and sentences. This is the reason why I told you a while back that in order to produce a certain language, there must be sound, words, and sentences together to come up with that, what you call speech. Okay. Speech involves the coordination of breathing, okay, the vocal cords, the vocal tract, the nasal tract tongue, the jaw, the tongue, the lips, and all throughout on your face as well. It is comprised of three main components. We have the VAF, voice, articulation, and fluency. Let me just repeat that. Voice, articulation, and fluency. It's your turn. You can also say it again. That is right. So VAF, those are the three components. What are the three components of speech again? That is right. Thank you so much. Right. Okay, let's move on to the definition of these components. The first one is the voice. This is actually the use of the breathe or the breath, vocal cords to make the sounds. Okay, what I'm using right now is my voice. Okay, you can understand me because you can hear something coming out from my vocal cords, and that is the voice. There is a singing voice. There is also a speaking voice. Would you like to hear me sing later on? Yes, of course, definitely I will do that. Don't you worry. Let's move on to the next one, articulation. Articulation is the way sounds are produced by the structures in our vocal tract. So they always say you have to articulate the words that you say because understanding matters a lot. If people don't understand you, there will be miscommunication in this sense. So that is the reason why you have to produce the sounds properly with the structure of your vocal tract. Because if you mispronounce a certain word, that could create misunderstanding, right? So when you are able to articulate, or when you're able to pronounce the words properly, then definitely there is articulation in it. Okay, let's move on to the last one, the third component, which is the fluency. This is actually the rhythm that is required so that we speak without hesitation. No repetition of sounds, syllables, words, or sentences. Some people will always ask me, why are you so fluent in English? Maybe because I do a lot of practice. Yes, practice makes perfect. Okay, if you want to improve your speaking skill, you try to speak in English all the time. You try to, or it may be not in English, in your own language, as long as you want to express, if you want to improve that kind of speaking that you have in you. But for me, what I usually do, I always use in English. And that makes me a greater speaker in English. You can also talk in front of yourself, in front of the camera, yes, or even a mirror to check even the positioning of your mouth and the lips when you speak. Okay, so fluency, no hesitation, there are no disturbances. Some people, they have some fillers, what you call the fillers or utterances, just to fill in. For example, the terms or expressions like those kinds of fillers. Well, according to speech experts, these fillers are not actually good. You can think of some other way of putting fillers, like kinda, somewhat, somehow, those kinds of useful fillers. You will be learning about that one later on. Okay, so I think I made myself clear regarding the three components of speech we have. Yes, voice, articulation, and fluency, the VAF. Now let's move on to the next slide. Take a look at the picture or illustration on the left side of this slide. As we studied earlier, speech and language are two different skills that work together so that a message is clearly communicated. So like I told you, speech and language work hand in hand to form a comprehensible message that you want to communicate, right? Now, this illustration on the left side of our screen tells us or helps us to understand the concept in the communication iceberg. This is according to Bilingual KidSpot. Have you seen an iceberg before? You know how it looks, right? This is how an iceberg looks like. Or maybe there's some other, shapes or sizes. But definitely an iceberg has something underneath it, right? Something that you don't see. Can you remember the movie Titanic? Yes, you can see there's an iceberg, right? Okay, this is the base of the ocean. And on top of it, you can see there the VAF, the voice, articulation, and fluency. Those are the things that we can only see when you speak. But deeper, if you try to dig deeper into it, there are some other factors that you have to remember. The first one is pragmatics. This one refers to how you use or how you are able to use such expression in different situations. For example, when you are very hungry, what kind of expression will you use? When you see a house that is burning, what kind of expression will you use? When you are in love, when you are happy or excited, what kinds of expressions will you use? That is part of pragmatics. The second one is the rules and structure. That falls under syntax, morphology, and phonology, grammar, pronunciation, and the words, vocabulary perhaps, okay? And we also have semantics, or the meaning of words, vocabulary still. So all of those things are embedded or inside your speech. So what we only see, what we only hear is basically the voice, articulation, and fluency. If you are able to develop these three things, that means you have also developed those underneath the iceberg: pragmatics, the rules and structures, and of course, the semantics. Okay, do you understand? I hope everyone is clear with this communication iceberg. On our next lecture, I will be dealing more about how communication works in a communication process. But there are some activities assigned to you on Genio for the online students and on your modules. All right, so take a look into those exercises or tasks and try your best to finish on a designated period of time. So that's the end of my lecture for speech and of course the importance of speech. I hope that everyone gets the importance of speech in communication. Always remember, when you speak, speak with respect, speak with finesse, and the right information to communicate. All right, so that's it for today, and stay safe, and we look forward to the next lecture next time. All right, have a great day. Bye-bye.